Well, hello everybody. Happy Friday and welcome back to Aquarius Rising Africa. I don't know why, but every time I start talking, there seems to be external interference. Now, guys just started, well, he's just driven past on his very noisy motorbike. Whew, I can hear. Welcome to Friday. Hello, Joanne. It's so good to have you back on Aquarius Rising Africa. And of course, all our beautiful people in the chats, welcome. And I know you're Americanas. It's early for you guys, most of you anyway. Actually, we are 2 hours later than what we said we were going to stream. So I guess you guys have had a little bit of sleep. So welcome to Friday. We've paved the way for you. It's a wonderful day. Hello, Joanne. How are you?
Hi, I'm good, thank you. I'm pleased to be back. Today I had to go in and have my shoulders scanned. I've torn ligaments in my shoulders and my arms. I've just worked way too hard in my lifetime, but we should be able to rectify that, I'm hoping, so make my life a little bit less painful. But today I'd really like to talk about like the shadow side of ourselves and the work we need to do for our own soul to heal and to move forward and to have, because it helps with your self-esteem, it helps with being able to want to get up in the morning and want to continue to exist. Because if you're around narcissists and psychopaths, which I've had a lot in my life, they take that away. They take your joy. They're like vampires. I think you've explained that a lot to me as well, Chantelle, because we're doing shadow work at this stage together, my shadow work, and I am so grateful. And they do literally suck every bit of joy from your existence, and they do it because they know what they're doing and they know how to do it.
I think what's so important for us to realize, especially on these platforms, and whether our viewers have experienced SRA or RSA, it doesn't really matter. What I mean, a lot of people have grown up in abusive homes or might not have been physically abusive, but mentally and emotionally. And I think if you're growing up with a narcissistic mother, especially, or even a father, it's very difficult to have a normal, healthy self-image when you go out into the world. So I think that is so important, and I think this is such a valuable topic, because I think we can all put up our hands and in agreement that those of us who've suffered, or those of you who have suffered abuse at the hands of narcissists and psychopaths and sociopaths and God knows what all else, as you say, it completely robs you of your joy. There is no joy. You know no joy, because they'll give you false hope. And you'll have this wonderful sense of, okay, there, and then boom, that hope is crashed. So you learn not to trust. And there is no compassion, because I think what's important to realize is, and this is what we've discussed on Jesse's shows as well, is that obviously the earlier that the kids get taken into the system, they are obviously trained with blood and torture and all sorts of things. So the empathetic or empathic, I don't know if it's empathetic or empathic, pathways of the brain are literally shut down. So blood and guts is just something that is normal. It's just
normal.
there. There's no empathy for the people, children, animals, zero.
That's so true. And I was having a conversation with one of my sponsors privately, and I had to admit, it was only yesterday, I think it was, I had to admit, it was not until I was about 12 years old, I realized not everybody was living the same family life I was, because I did not even know there was a different way to be a family. I had no clues at all. And when I saw there was a difference, it really shocked me. You know, and when you're around these ones again that take everything from you, and you go back and you say, but there's differences out there, because you've been taught, I was taught from the get-go, this is how the whole world is. And even now, when I do talk here, and I hear back from some people saying, we'd like to hear what you're saying, and you're an inspiration, and to me it's still foreign. You know, how the heck can this, what I went through, help anybody on the other hand? Like on one hand, the other hand. So it's still very hard to, in a way, marry the two together, because it was so normal. It was just so normal. And but I'm what, 57 now, and it still is, oh my gosh, it's not normal. But it is on so many levels, because even if you like you were saying, okay, you may not have gone through the system, you may not have gone through the ritualistic abuse, but it doesn't matter how you abused, the hurt is the same.
Yes.
So one type of abuse is not worse than any other type of abuse. You know, and people say, have said to me so many times, oh, you know, I didn't go through what you did. Mine wasn't as bad. Well, hello. No, stop, because it was just as bad. Because it was, and it hurt the same, and it damaged the soul the same. And that is what people have to really grasp. And I know I sound very forceful of that, because otherwise you diminish that other person. And that then damages the soul, the self-esteem, and your own self-worth. So it doesn't matter what you think, if it's something really minor or major, the hurt's the same. And that is what I really need to get across to everybody. You know,
it's so true. It's so true what you're saying. And I just want to comment on Ian, who's speaking about the MACE energy system. And in fact, I interviewed Jerry Marzinski a lot. So we know about the MACE work on this channel. It's good to know you knowing about it too. And I think, Joanne, if I'm not mistaken, aren't you a MACE practitioner?
Yes.
You see, there we go. And honestly, although my work is not exactly MACE, it's very similar, I have to say. And that is also how we have to, we've been able to, I've been able to work with Joanne, is along with that. And it's so true what you say, you know, when you have this constant bullying, abuse, torture, whether doesn't matter what type of torture or bullying it is, it breaks away bits of pieces of the child's soul, so to speak. So it doesn't matter how the glass broke. At the end of the day, the glass is broken, right?
Yes.
So that's what we have to remember as well. Every person has their way of dealing with things. And what I love about speaking with survivors like yourself who have walked this healing journey is you would know, of all people, healing is no breeze. It requires that we go back to places that we really don't want to go to. But the beauty about healing is really that, because healing doesn't mean you're broken. I want to just make that very clear. All healing means is that you bring yourself back into balance. That's all it is. Think of the human as 4 legs of the table: spiritual, emotional, mental, physical. And if one leg of that table is not balanced, the table topples. Think about sitting at a restaurant or any table when you have a wobbly leg. It's very frustrating, and you're going through life wobbling. You know, that's pretty much how it is spiritually, or how the energy would then work within you as well. So they make sure they distort, and especially the first, which is the root chakra, right? Your foundation, your security. They're going to make sure that they take away every aspect of security that could possibly exist within your life. They're going to make sure you feel extremely unsafe, and that there's no one, not even God, is there for you. Where's your God now? They'll mock you, right? Where's Jesus now? They'll mock you.
Yes,
and it breaks away. It completely chips away at the psyche. So it takes a lot, you know, for people to just learn to trust anyone again. I mean, I think hello, baby, cutie.
You're
I
so
think that's
right, Shanti. You're so right. You know, because I grew up and because the religion was so much a big part of what I lived through, I've come up with these couple of things I must say now. God will not show mercy on evil narcissists who intentionally inflict pain and emotional damage and suffering on other souls, because we are all God's children. He will give ample chances to change and repent, but when I can't read my own writing, I wrote it. When limits are crossed, they have to face the wrath of God and pay the price. Because remember, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. Now, I love those scriptures. Narcissists are not tortured souls who struggle to find their place in the world. Narcissists, much like psychopaths, which my father is a documented psychopath, are predatory. They are fully aware of what they do to their targets or source, and they do so without any remorse. They do not have empathy. They do not feel the hurt, the pain they're inflicting on someone else.
No, because they've become so numb, so they project. You see, my question here, though, is that when you're looking at such an extreme narcissist, right, or psychopath, and we're understanding mind control, and we're understanding how the demonic entities work, and could that not be the entity that's actually taken over that body and not the actual being itself, right? And I mean, I don't want to say that is true for everyone, but I want to say that I think, especially in extreme cases, like when people have been exposed to SRA and stuff like that, I do believe that would surely be the case.
I do agree that, yep, I mean, there's people like Jesse, myself, many that have just turned our backs on it. And no, we knew. But you take someone like my father who's 80 odd, and until this very day, as much as he was tortured, and we know he was tortured, he didn't stand a chance, not one chance. But now he has the chance. He knows all about God. Of course he does. He knows all about Satan. He knows what he's meant to do, what he's not meant to do. And as the scriptures say, he will give ample chances. So if he doesn't take those chances and does not change and repent, that's not the entity, is it? We've all got free will.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. But remember, one of the big things that the arcane or the Luciferians do is they will rob you of your free will in such a subtle way that you don't even know it's being taken. Yeah.
Yeah, that is true. But I still believe there are some that will never change, and
Yeah, sure.
because they don't want to. Now, I'm not saying my father doesn't want to, because he is considering and looking differently and talking differently. So I only use him as an example, being he is what they call a registered psychopath. But the best thing we can do for our healing with these sorts of people is there's two things. One is to remove yourself from that and don't keep going back. I mean, when you don't get the love and the support as a child and you've gone through the system, you always want to go back and get what you haven't got. Okay, that's in us, that's an instinct. But we want mum to love us, we want dad to care. But what we need to do, and this is only from my experience, was to remove yourself from that. Don't go back. Take that time out and do your own healing.
Yeah, I agree.
Go within.
You cannot heal in the environment that has destroyed you.
No.
So I absolutely agree with that. That if anyone who is coming out of a relationship like that or is aware that they're in a relationship like that, the first thing that we should do is really just take ourselves out as best we can and not actually engage in any other relationships for a while. But unfortunately, most people who've been in those situations will so often immediately relationship hop. They're seeking for validation outside of themselves because that's what they've always been taught, right? So they relationship hop and obviously get their hearts broken even more because all they're doing is repeating the cycle. So it's very important,
They damage themselves more.
Exactly.
And they also damage everyone around them. And they're not doing it consciously because, again, they're on outside, trying to get that fulfillment from others, from external.
Yes.
And that's why I think it's imperative that's why I needed to bring this up and talk about this. Because if you are in these situations, please learn, take yourself out of it. Do not look for love anywhere else. Because, the absolute most important and most fulfilling love affair is when you go within and you love yourself. Because that's what we're meant to. So this is why I need this information to be given, is because do that instead of trying to get it externally, because then when you do get it externally, it will be real love, not false.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why it's so important to recognize that. And it's so difficult at the same time. I mean, sure, these codependent relationships, what do we call it? Is it the Stockholm syndrome? Where you pretty much, it's trauma bonding, really, right?
Yes.
So we tend to, if we haven't healed that trauma, we tend to then bounce from, and it could be, it's normally romantic relationships, right? But it could be friendships as well. And you bounce from person to person, trying to find the thing that is going to heal you. But the only thing that's happening is that you're hurting yourself more, because you opening yourself up more to more deception, because that's really at the end of the day all you're getting from
That's
these
right.
bouncing around relationships. So it's so important just to heal and take that time out and realign, and the right time, the right person or people come along. Yeah. And I'm just actually watching the chats here, watching quite a few people talk about adoption. And I know with Kerry Saint, we did a whole lot of stuff on adoption. And I think, Joanne, correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe we can touch on some of that stuff here, since there is talk about it in the chat. I think all of this is so, when especially when you're looking at the reason why so many people adopt, okay? There are those that do it for really nefarious reasons, like we've done so many shows on. And then there are those that do it because they really can't have children and they love those kids. I have a friend and her husband who are one of those. I tell you, they waited for years and years to get this baby. And she is so treasured. It's beautiful to see. She actually looks like them. Their birthdays are 2 days apart. Their birthdays are 2 days apart. Her birthday is in the middle of theirs. So tell me that wasn't destined to be. It's just actually beautiful. Yeah. And but then, of course, you get those that are doing it for the money because blah, 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 and really don't have much love for children, but are really doing it because, I don't know, maybe foster caring or whatever the case might be. I'm not sure. I know every situation is different. But adoption, the one thing that Kerry Sain spoke about a lot and that really touched me and made such a lot of sense, and I just knew to be true, that when a baby's born, it takes about roughly 10 months to wean energetically from its mother. So not only are you're severing the umbilical cord, yes, so there's that physical separation, but it takes another, call it a year, almost a year, for that child to wean from its mother, right? I don't know where Joanne's gone now.
I'll be back.
Oh, there you are. Okay. And, that to me was so interesting because that's why, in situations where children are adopted, that tie is severed immediately, right? And instead of feeling your mother's heartbeat because you've been in her womb for 9 months and her arms and her voice, whatever, you are ripped away, handed to someone else in a cold, I don't know, that must be so traumatic for that child. And that, I mean, we've often spoken about the knock-on effect that has. I don't know, do you see any link maybe with even some of the stuff we're talking about?
Absolutely, it is. And what you just said, that child is being literally, as you said, ripped away from, the voice, the smell, the scent. That is the most important. The scent, your senses, your 5 senses. And then you're put onto a bottle with milk that's not from mum. It doesn't have the DNA in that milk, which helps with their growth and development. They get put
an
on
immune system.
Yeah, exactly. They're given cow's milk. Now, us as women, we produce milk that's perfect for that child, to feed that child. You feed it cow's milk, you're feeding it animal DNA. Think about the effects of that in the child. And
Wow.
the biggest thing is also scent, the scent of your mother. I remember years and years ago when my daughter was about 10, I had to go away for some reason for a few days. And the day I went away, I left my nightgown on my bed. I'd worn it the night before. And hubby's was telling me every single night I was away, my daughter stuck this nightgown on over her PJs because she needed to smell mum. So that in itself, and she was, you know, not a tiny baby, but even then she still needed that scent for her security.
Yeah, of
And that
course.
tells us so much about our children. And
Absolutely.
if we're taken from our actual mother, given to someone else to be a mother, that's trauma. That is trauma. And that when you bond with that new scent, every time you smell that scent, it's a trigger to trauma. Let that digest for a second, because you're going to be with that new woman for what, the rest of your life, but every time you smell her scent, something's going to trigger in you.
Trauma, no, exactly. It's so true that. It's so true. It's so true. And I think, you know, a lot of, and obviously, I have no doubt that these people in the system, the Lucy's, know these things. So that's why they create so much separation and trauma to begin with. Because when you're shutting down, and of course, smell is one of your main senses. Smell is probably the most powerful, and obviously smell, sight, and hearing as well. You know, so you're gonna obviously perceive a lot of things, but all kind of wrapped into one in one moment. So the trauma then is more impactful, and I do believe that this is why so many children, I mean, you look at the celebrities, all these celebrities who pretend to be pregnant and giving birth. Meanwhile, they're sitting down and you see the baby bump. Anyone who's been pregnant knows there's no ways a baby bump can conk in, okay? You've got to like, oh, man.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like, oh.
Yes, exactly.
So the point is, you know, these are obviously other babies that are being bred. And even if they do have their genes or DNA and they're being carried by surrogates or something, it's still not the same thing, you know. So already there's that trauma right in the beginning. And that's what I see with what I have been seeing with all these like celebrities, famous people, royals, whatever, right? There's a lot of that going on. So that already is telling me that would be the basis for narcissism and stuff like that. It's the basis because you've never known love. That's what you need. You see, these people have never known love. And when they don't know love, they have no idea how to act in a loving way. And that is why I do think that there is redemption, definitely, for people who've experienced that. You know,
I do agree there's redemption, but they have to choose it.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I think that's it. They have to
do
choose
agree with
that.
you.
Yeah.
And I agree. You know, and your soul knows the wrongs it's done. And karma is not some airy-fairy concept somewhere. Karma really means cause and effect. So basically, whatever you've dished out has the ripple effect. And at some point, what you've dished out comes back to you tenfold.
That's right, yes.
So that's what it is. It's pretty much the law of cause and effect. So when we understand that every thought we have, every action we have, every reaction we have creates our karmic path. In other words, we've got to deal with our bullshit. We think someone else has to, but it's not true. It's all going to come back to us. At some point it comes back. I don't know how, but that's what it is, you know, which is interesting.
It is.
So,
and, you know, stepping back to the child, when it comes down to vibration and they're in the womb and you're speaking constantly or you're singing, whatever, it's a vibration. They're growing in that vibration. So the moment they're taken from that and given to another mother, the vibration changes as well. So the whole
Totally. So
vibration,
they're completely
yes,
confused and traumatized,
yes,
right?
they are.
Yeah, that's the
Absolutely.
thing. Wow.
Yes. So, and I think the other thing to remember, I said there was two things. One, that all trauma has the same effect on the soul, and that is never to dismiss when you're feeling triggered and the trauma's there. And don't be like me at times, to turn around and go, oh, stop being so bloody stupid. What's upset you this time? Because you're
Yeah,
only traumatizing yourself and you start hurting yourself again.
yeah,
And I think
exactly.
walking that path, learning not to belittle and then continue to replay tapes that was said to you when you were the child, that you're shut up, you speak when you're spoken to. If look, I wasn't allowed to say, well, I think. No, you will think what I tell you. So even now, it'll be, well, I think, and it's like, hang on a minute, I'm allowed to think. Okay, and I've got to sit with that. So you got to take that time out to sit with, you are allowed. You don't have
Yeah,
to take on the persona of what was put on you and projected to you, to who you
exactly.
were. And that's one thing that
Exactly.
we've just gone through. When I look at myself and I see my mother, and there's a lot about that I can't do, can't handle, and I've had to really address that. But they're the two real big things that it was just been on me, on my heart, to get out there, that these things don't ever diminish yourself in these ways. I'm living proof that we do these things, but we can change it for ourselves. Again, we have choices. See, choices aren't just for everyone else, they're for ourselves. And we have to look inside, because everything that is in our lives, we create. So we need to think about what we're putting in there and projecting onto ourselves, because we're not children anymore. So why are we continuing that abuse ourselves onto ourselves without doing the important shadow work?
Exactly.
That's so important. Yeah.
It's so true to be able to do that and, be accountable, because it's so, what we realize at some point is that it wasn't your fault what happened to you when you were a child. Absolutely.
No.
But it is your responsibility to heal yourself.
Yes. And
And
to
that
realize your
is
purpose.
absolutely. And when you're able to do that, that's when things start changing. And I know we're going to be doing an interview with you for Gnostic TV soon on, and I know obviously Gnostic TV, we do a lot of, although the way they're demonetizing my channel, every video I put out there, they'll demonetize now. They're crazy. YouTube is crazy. Anyway, on Gnostic TV, it's uncensored, right? Even that's why I say.
Yes.
But what we're going to be talking about there is really the role that your mom played within your abuse. And I want to just say as well, that's the topic we're also covering with Jessie there at the moment on Gnostic TV. Is the one of her last interviews on Gnostic was really, she spoke about the mothers of darkness, right? And we're going more into the roles that they all played in the abuse. And we have this idea that women are the ones that are there to protect.
They don't.
And they're often seen as being the helpless victims who can't protect the children because they too are being abused. But what we're realizing more and more is that there's actually a lot of, they enable a lot of things. In fact, they participate in a lot of things as well. So, and I don't want to go too deeply into it, and bearing in mind that we, you know, whatever we say, we could get knocked or whatever. But maybe you can just touch briefly on the role that your mom played within this.
Well, my mother and her mother, even my abusive father, the psychopath, feared them, trembled. They weren't the caregivers, they were the power holders. And when they casted their spells, everybody scattered to the wind. I remember just after I got married, Tony had a plane. There's my plane, look at that, I can fly. Anyway, he had this plane, a smaller plane. He's got a license. My mother and my grandmother, or Nana, had him so feared because they were doing a spell. He went and slept in that plane for over a week.
But what spell were they doing? What spell were they?
It's not a very nice one. I'll go further into that on Gnostic.
Okay, but was it against him or was it just in general?
No, him.
Okay. So, oh my goodness. Okay, so he then slept outside
in the plane,
for a
in the
week.
hangar. Yep.
Wow.
So they held the power. They really held the power. And the men cowered to them. So, no, men are, yeah, my father's a psychopath and there was a lot of bad people around him, bad men. But the women, as you said, were the enablers. They're the ones that directed what they did. Another time, when my kids were only young, I visited my brother, and all of a sudden, my brother grabbed hold of my children, one in each arm. He was a big man, and he literally threw us three into our car and said, "Get the hell out of here," because my mother had directed my father, who drove road trains, which is a huge big trucks, okay, with lots and lots of trailers behind. Him and another guy with a road train were coming to box me in to get my children. Okay? My mother sent that order out. And these men follow the orders. But my brother saved me. And sadly, my brother's dead now. But women aren't nice in the system. They're not nice at all. They're vindictive. They are vicious. There's a word for you. Absolute viciousness. Cruelty. And I'm so pleased, and I'm so grateful I'm nothing like her. I've got traits that she has got. It's in my DNA. But nothing like her, and nothing like her mother. And all the other ones going back in the generations beforehand. Yeah, that was my mother. And no, my mother's not with me now, not alive now, which is good. She needed to go when she did. I did have the chance to converse and make peace with her before she left. And she realized, she said to me, the last thing she said to me was, Joanne, all this knowledge, all this training you've done to get where I have been working with abused people. She said, none of that matters. She said, I've come to the realization, the only thing that's important is love. And I looked at her and I said, it's taken you 73 years to know that? And I said to her then, well, you can go back to God now. 3 days later, she died. So I don't hate my mother. I don't hate anybody, to be quite honest. I never have. Even when we're going through the courts and the judge looked at me and he says, what do you really think? I broke down and I said, I think it's all just been too sad. That's all it is. It's all just been too sad. It didn't have to be this way. But to hate is to have something inside you eat up like cancer. It only ends up hurting you. Did Jesus hate when he was crucified? He said, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they're doing. Hate is a waste of emotion and it just kills you.
Absolutely is.
Yeah.
Hate is really an aberration of something is indigestible to you, right? And there are so many different areas one can look at that. But really, at the end of the day, it's about you making peace with every situation. And the only way you can do that is through God, is through, you're never going to find your healing only through the psychological way of doing it, like only through psychology. You're never going to find your healing only through the spiritual route, right? You're going to find your healing when you apply the spiritual aspects psychologically, emotionally, as well as physically, and then you integrate them physically. It's a role of acceptance. It's a process that takes you there. It doesn't just happen. But it's not just one thing. Healing is different aspects. We are not one-dimensional, right? We are movable, we are fluid, we are multidimensional beings. We only see in the third dimensional, well, some of us see beyond that. But and when we do see beyond that, we realize the non-physical creates the physical. Everything is energy, and it's invisible to the naked eye. But when you start understanding how to integrate, in other words, how do you integrate the teachings of Christ without just talking about them and shouting them out? Because when you're talking about them and shouting them out, it tells me you have not begun to integrate them yourself yet. Because when you then start living it, you then start acting it, which means you have to do shadow work because there's too many blockages that caused you to digress at the first. Okay, your reason for digression in the first place was because you were getting up to all sorts of shenanigans, whatever that might be, right? So the first thing is to spiritually acknowledge or repent. Now you've got to fix or change what you did wrong. And that's the shadow work. And that's where we've got to sit deep, quiet, integrated, aligned with who we are. And for me, that is very, very powerful work. because then it affects your emotions. There's like this huge, big lifting that happens. It feels like 10 tons are lifted off your shoulders. It affects your third eye. In other words, the way you perceive things now changes. And it's not airy-fairy. It's just to do suddenly your understanding shifts because you can see things that you didn't see before. Now you have a greater vision or a greater picture of what you didn't have before. And then when you have that, boom, suddenly the path is different. And guess what? Your body just heals of itself. That's the miraculous thing about doing shadow work. Everything heals, actually. But you have to put things into place and do certain work to do that.
Yes. And then you got
Exactly.
to remember, as you have helped me, remember you agreed to this before you even were born.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
Absolutely.
And I think that was a huge thing for me. And you know, about 6 o'clock for me here in Australia, my daughter rang and my granddaughter and grandson were talking to me. And I was feeding Jonas, I do believe. And little Olivia, my granddaughter, said, Granny, what are you doing? Because I was looking down a bit. And I said, I'm just feeding Jonas, darling. She goes, oh, please let me see. Now, I mean, that thrilled my heart. Because that connection between my granddaughter, myself, my Joey, my daughter there, my grandson, I said to her then, I said, let Granny just finish the bottle and then I'll hold him up so you can see. And she waited quietly and just sitting there waiting. And I held him up and her little face lit up. You know, that's healing. That's healing on every single level. And it's healing my grandchildren
Yeah,
from,
absolutely.
you know, and we heal, as you're saying, it's not just 1D, it's in every single dimension. And when you
You
do
know,
start going within, you see this healing as it's happening.
For me, the captain of my soul, but you're beaming this morning. Thank you. It's sucking up to me. I had to comment on that. I'm sorry. Thank you. That's because I went to my dentist.
Yeah, it helped.
The dentist this morning. He likes going to the dentist. I actually quite like going to my dentist. Anyway, what I was saying is that if we go back, like looking at what just backpedaling to Christmas, that was a few months or a few weeks ago, really.
Yes.
I know for you, that was a particularly difficult time.
Very.
Maybe you want to just share a little bit about what Christmas was for you, because I know that was a huge point of trigger. You were very triggered at Christmas time. And so maybe you don't have to go into too much detail, but maybe you can just share with us a little bit what that was about, because I found that incredible.
Mm-hmm. Well, you see, Christmas was never a good time for me because it was literally Boxing Day when I was 17 that we first disclosed that this was all happening. We disclosed to someone else, and it was then brought. My parents were held up, basically brought up on this is really happening. Your girls have actually brought this to our attention. Police got involved, and it was all. It was hell. It was pure hell. And then he got away with it. So did my mother. Okay, so Christmas every year has been a challenge. Every time it comes up to the month of Christmas, I change. I turn into this how would I describe myself? I'm negative. I'm angry. All I want to do is sleep through the whole month so it goes away. I get triggered just like this. And when I'm triggered, and before I know I'm triggered, something else happens and I go even more triggered. And then I push everybody away from me and I make it so they don't want to be near me because I don't deal with anybody near me. I can't deal with a Christ being born and we're celebrating that. I can't deal with any of it. Now, the only difference I did this year was when you rang me, I told you. I literally trusted a woman because I don't trust women. I don't like women. Never have. I mean, why would I? But I'm learning still. I could trust Chantelle. So I basically spewed up all over poor Chantelle's phone call, which is true. I did.
Didn't.
I did, really. And then Chantelle said, okay, let's step back for a second and let's talk about this. And boy, by the time Christmas Day came and I was with my family, I was dancing with my granddaughter, doing the old jig. We were out in the pool having a splashing time. And my children looked at me and went, huh? What the hell happened to you, Mum? It's called shadow work and I'm doing it with Chantelle. We like her. Daniel, yeah, we like her. And Jess says, haven't met her yet, but I like her. She's good. Because they saw the difference. And it's not something, it's, and I really was so childlike and so happy and delighted in Christmas and just being. And now I sort of look back at the photos and the videos we took, and it's like I'm a different person. And my grandchildren got that benefit. Why? Because with a lot of guidance and a lot of love from this precious lady, Joanne went in to see what cords needed to be cut. So these entities that I had kept there anyway by always going back, always being triggered, could be burnt. So no attachment could be made again. And now, next Christmas, all I'm going to need to do is make sure when it's coming up to Christmas, I'm not going to be drawn back by this. I'm going to be replaying videos from this Christmas we've just had. And no entity will be able to take me back to that place again. And it's just been a miracle. Miracles do happen.
It's called transformation, babe. It's called transformation. True
yeah,
transformation.
My grandchildren love it.
Oh.
And I'm the nana, grandma I should be, happy and loving them.
Oh.
And my daughter.
Well, I'm very grateful and very happy to see how things are changing and have changed. And it's good to see you looking in such a good space. That's for sure. So
It's much nicer.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit bedraggled because I had to go out and come home, but that's okay. I'm okay with me. In fact, I'm happy. And I'm so grateful we could do this today. because I don't want anybody, not anyone that's in the chat or anyone who sees this, to ever downplay and not look that they are beautiful in every single way.
Absolutely.
Mm.
And, you know, all of us have our path to freedom. And, you know, I think it just depends on people's different definitions of what freedom is. Freedom is really a place within. It's feeling that peace, the joy. And I say joy is actually a higher vibration than love. Because in order, I want to say, to feel love, to really feel love, you have to be in joy. But I know that can sound a little bit complicated, but it's not really. So I want to say to you, thank you so very much, Joanne, for joining us here today. And thank you to our beautiful chat family, Lisa D, Captain of My Soul, Colleen, Janice, all the little wrenches with wenches. I hope I haven't missed anyone. I know, Joanne, you're usually in there, aren't you? With your little wrench.
We like our wrenches.
Yeah, I like it. And I like it when you use them too. Anyway.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm so happy to have this lovely Friday afternoon convo with all of you. And take care of yourselves, everybody. God bless you all. And yes, anyone who has not joined our ARA chat on Telegram, then please join us. There's the link. Lisa D has put it into the chat section as well. Okay, everybody, take good care of yourselves. Joanne, is there anything you want to say, maybe just before we say goodbye?
I'd like to say goodbye and thank you very much, and I love you all.
Thank you, honey. Thank you. And thank you, Jeannie. Blessings back to you as well. Take good care, everybody. I'll see you very soon. God bless you all. Bye-bye.